Good evening, professors, teachers, and my colleagues. I'm presenting on peripheral nerve stimulator equipments, applications, and pitfalls. I'm a fellow in Sterling Hospital, Rajkot, and I'm guided by Dr. Hital Vadera, sir. Now, in this topic, I'll be covering history, what is peripheral nerve stimulator, neurophysiology and electrophysiology, clinical use, advantages and disadvantages. Coming on to the history, in 1780, Luigi Galvan was the first person to describe the effect of electrical neuromuscular stimulation in frog's pen. In 1909, Louis Lapégue was the first French physiologist to study electrical nerve stimulation. In 1912, Perthes was the first person to perform nerve blocks by PNS. Before that, the blocks were performed by dissecting the nerves directly and instilling the drugs into that. In 1955, Pearson introduced the concept of insulated needles for the nerve location. In 1962, Greenblatt and Denson introduced portable solid-state nerve stimulator with variable current output and described its use for nerve location. In 1973, Montgomery et al. Demonstrated non-insulated needles that require higher current than insulated needles. Ford et al. In 1984 reported the lack of accuracy with non-insulated needles once the needle could pass the nerve, and suggested the use of nerve stimulator with a constant current based on the comparison of the electrical characteristic of peripheral nerve stimulator. In 2004, Hadzik and Volka defined electrical characteristic and suggested manufacturing of modern nerve stimulators. What is peripheral nerve stimulator? It is a method of using low intensity current up to 5 milliampere with a short duration pulse width of 0.05 to 1 millisecond and an electrical stimulus frequency of 1 to 2 hertz. It helps in recognizing an intraneural or intrafascicular needle placement and prevents its further advancement and reduces the risk of nerve injury. It can be used as a single injection technique, continuous nerve block for the insertion of the continuous nerve block catheters, and also as a part of dual monitoring, that is the use of ultrasound along with the peripheral nerve stimulator. And it has become a basis for the medico-legal aspect. Now coming on to the neurophysiology and electrophysiology. Now there are some definitions that we need to look upon. Resting membrane potential is a potential difference across the cell membrane without any stimulation. For nerves, it is minus 70 millivolts, and for muscle, it is minus 90 millivolts. Now the action potential is defined as a spontaneous depolarization of an excitable cell in response to a stimulus, or it can be also defined as decrease in the resting membrane potential from minus 90 to minus 55 millivolts. A membrane potential is defined as a difference in electrical potential between the inside and outside of the cell. Now here, as you can see, once the stimulus starts, the rapid change in the voltage or the action potential starts. Then there is depolarization. That is because of the opening of the sodium channels, there is influx of the sodium ions. Once the depolarization is done, there is membrane repolarization where the sodium channels get inactivated and there is activation of the potassium channels, which causes the efflux of potassium ions. In hyperpolarization, which is a lowered membrane potential, it is mainly because of the efflux of the potassium ions and the closing of the potassium channels. Then it comes to the resting state, that is the membrane potential returns to the resting voltage that occurred before the stimulus, which has occurred. Now coming on to the types of fibers, which can be differentiated on the basis of the diameter and degree of myelination. So the diameter of motor fibers are larger as compared to the pain fibers and the sensory fibers. And the motor fibers are myelinated to its highest as compared to the sensory fibers, which are less myelinated, and C fibers are unmyelinated. Now, the speed of propagation of impulse and threshold of excitability, they both determine the electrophysiologic behavior of the nerve. The speed of impulse propagation is faster for motor fibers as compared to pain fibers, and the threshold for the electrical stimulation is low for the motor fibers, and for pain fibers, it's high. And the chronaxy of the motor fibers is less as compared to the pain fibers, which is more. As you can see in the picture, in the first picture, the motor fibers have shorter chronaxy because of the relatively low capacitance of the myelinated membrane, and here only the node of the Ranvier will count. That is, the impulse will jump from the one node of Ranvier to the other, and so only short they'll require only less time to depolarize the membrane up to the threshold level. Whereas this is the this is for the pain fibers, where the pain fibers have longer chronaxy because of the higher capacitance of the non-myelinated membrane, and so they take longer time to reach up to the threshold level. The shorter impulse, which would not be able, if we give shorter impulses, it would not be able to depolarize the membrane below the threshold level. Now here, as you can see, this is a motor fiber which is myelinated, and this is the node of Ranvier. So this is the place where the ion exchanges occur and produce the saltatory conduction. That is, the impulse will jump from one node to another. This is a diagram of the pain fiber who has a shorter chronaxy. Here they are not myelinated, and there is a low speed of the impulse propagation as compared to the pain fibers who has a high speed of impulse propagation. Now coming on to the current intensity, it is a measure of the stimulus strength. So here it means the flow of it is a flow of electrical charge which is used to depolarize a nerve and produce a motor response. So here the total charge applied to excite a nerve is equal to the product of the intensity of the current applied and the duration to which it is applied. So according to the Ohm's law, which describes the relationship between voltage, resistance, and current, according to this equation shown here, it means at a given voltage, the current changes with the resistance. So for nerve stimulation to be performed, we need a constant current. So that is done by the voltage to the varying degree of resistance. That is, the voltage has to adapt to the different resistance produced by the entire circuit. So here the voltage might increase or decrease to produce a constant current to the different changing resistance. And this resistance may be produced by the needle tip, electrode to skin interface, and the tissue layers. Now, this constant current, which is produced by the PNS by raising or lowering the voltage in response to the change in resistance. This relationship is explained by the stimulus strength duration curve. That is, in the picture, you can see the red line is for the motor fiber, and this is for the pain fiber. Now, Rho wave is defined as a minimal current intensity of infinite duration required to produce an action potential. And a current below Rho wave will not generate any motor response or depolarize it. So this is the Rho wave for the motor fibers, and this is the Rho wave for the sensory fibers. Chronaxy is defined as a minimal duration of the pulse during, which is required to depolarize the nerve, which is twice that of the Rho wave. So this is the chronaxy of the motor fibers, and this is the chronaxy of the sensory fibers, which is that of twice of Rho wave. Now, chronaxy of the nerves will be different, but the Rho wave remains the same. And it also provides an indicator for the excitability of the nerve. And chronaxy is inversely proportional to the fiber size and the ease of the stimulation. So more diameter fiber will have less chronaxy, and so they'll be easily stimulated. Whereas a small diameter fiber will have more chronaxy, and so they'll be difficult to get stimulated. Here, the chronaxy of A alpha fiber is 0.05 to 0.1 millisecond, and for A delta fiber, it is 0.150 millisecond. For C fibers, which transmits slow pain and it's unmyelinated, the chronaxy is 0.4 millisecond. Now, while performing a nerve block, patient won't feel pain during the block, except when the needle pierces the skin or touching the nerve, or when the needle has gone intraneurally. So it's mainly because the myelinated or the motor fibers, they have shorter chronaxis compared to C fibers, so they get easily stimulated with a low amplitude current and a shorter pulse width duration. So they require lesser energy. So only motor fibers are stimulated as compared to the C fibers. So while performing a nerve block, we only stimulate motor nerve and not the sensory nerve, so patient won't feel pain during the while performing a nerve block. So frequency is defined as a number of stimulus applied every second. So the most common frequencies are used between 1 to 2 hertz, which is optimal for any localization of nerve. 3 hertz are also used. Now 1 hertz is used when we have to avoid any muscular pain or discomfort to the patient. The disadvantage of using 1 hertz frequency is that it should be advanced very slowly because there are high chances that we would miss the nerve. 2 hertz is most commonly used because the needle advancement or the needle manipulation will be easier as compared to 1 hertz. Now, if we use higher frequencies, there will be more discomfort to the patient, and low frequencies will have the risk of the nerve injury. Now, pulse width is defined as a duration of time to which the current intensity is applied. It depends upon the chronaxy of the nerve which has to be stimulated. Now, a shorter pulse width of 100 to 200 microseconds corresponds to the chronaxy of the A alpha fibers and is more suitable for the nerve stimulation. Longer pulse width, if we now the longer pulse width is used to elicit paresthesia in awake patients to block the sensory nerves like the saphenous nerve or the lateral femoral cutaneous. Whereas, and it's also used to in patients with diabetic neuropathy and polyneuropathy. Now, pulse width has also role in successful use of epidural stimulation test or SUI test. Now, in this table, the different pulse width and the threshold ranges are used and its application are there. For 4.1 millisecond of pulse width with a current amplitude of not less than 0.3 milliamperes used in motor peripheral nerves. With a current intensity of 1 to 15 milliampere of not less than 1 milliampere with a pulse width of 0.2 millisecond, they are used in epidural space and intrathecal space, whereas the current intensity of 6 milliampere and a pulse width of 1 millisecond are used in epidural space. Now, the quality of the stimulation is mainly defined by the polarity and the type of the electrode used, the distance between the needle and the nerve, and the impedance, that is the interaction at the tissue needle interface. Now, the electrical polarity is defined as a directional flow of the electrons from the negative pole towards the positive pole. Here in the circuit, the negative pole, that is the cathode, is connected to the stimulating electrode of the needle, which is black in color, and anode is connected to the skin, which is red in color. Now here, the stimulation should be done only by the cathode. So if we are using cathode for the stimulation, we require very less current to stimulate the nerve. That means the negative current which flows from the cathode will reduce the voltage around the voltage gradient around this membrane and will produce depolarization and also generate an action potential. And so it's easier to stimulate nerve, and there is less discomfort to the patient as current required is also very less. So as you can see here in the picture, if we use cathode as a stimulating electrode, there is depolarization, and if we use anode as a to stimulate a nerve, there is hyperpolarization at which is adjacent to the tip of the needle, and depolarization distal to it. So you can see here the motor response is produced. There is no motor response here. Now in the next picture, this is a circuit where this is a peripheral nerve stimulator of Plexicon. Here the red color is connected, should be connected to the patient. Here the black color, which is cathode, should be connected to the needle. The anode, which is positive electrode, should be connected to the patient. Now coming on to the current distance relationship, it's a relationship between the threshold current and the distance from the nerve, which is governed by the Coulomb's law or the inverse square law. Here, the greater I is the current required, the smaller I is the minimal current from the needle tip, and R is the distance from the nerve. So this the current intensity which is required, or the threshold current intensity which is required, is inversely proportional to the square of the distance. The main principle here is to calculate the distance from the needle to nerve using a constant current stimulus. So if the needle is too far away from the nerve, a higher current is required, which is painful to the patient. If the nerve is stimulated with a very low threshold current, then it indicates that the needle tip is very close to the nerve. And if a motor response is obtained with a low with a current amplitude of less than zero point 0.2 milliampere, then there is strong chances that the needle is inside the epinucleum. As you can see in the first picture, the needle is far away from the nerve, and a high current and a high stimulus current will produce a weak motor response. In the second picture, the stimulating needle close to the nerve and a high current stimulus is given will produce a strong motor response. Whereas the third picture, here the needle is close to the nerve, but a low stimulus current is given uh, to produce a motor response. Here the motor response produces is a weak. Now coming on to the impedance or the complex resistance. So it is the resistance of the nerve stimulator, needle, tissue characteristic of the patient, and the grounding electrodes and the cables. Now this impedance will depend upon the frequency content of the stimulus. Now the major impact is mainly formed by the needle tip and the electrode to the skin impedance. Now, the resistance of the needle tip will depend upon the geometry and the insulation of the needle tip, whereas the electrode to skin resistance will depend upon the type and hydration status of the skin and the quality of the ECG electrode used. So, the shorter the impulse used, higher will be the frequency content, and so lower will be the impedance. Whereas longer will be the impulse, lower will be the frequency content, and higher will be the impedance. That is the resistance of the circuit. So the nerve stimulator, by producing constant current, is required to uh, compensate for the different resistance or the impedance produced by the circuit, which is done by varying degree of by increasing or decreasing the voltage. Now, this nerve stimulator differs from the neuromuscular monitor, where they use a higher current intensity, that is a supramaximal stimulus, to assess the degree of neuromuscular blockage. Now, these are the components of the peripheral nerve stimulator. Here is the clock reference. We have this microcontroller, the display, and the controls here. Now, the clock reference is a synchronizing mechanism. That is, it synchronizes the current with the stimulus. It has a crystal. It is a crystal oscillator which will produce a very accurate and high frequency clock signals, and this clock signals will send input to the microcontroller, and thus they control all the functions. Now coming on to the microcontroller, which is considered as a brain of the nerve stimulator. So this nerve stimulator basically runs on a battery. So low battery powered are preferred. Now this microcontroller will receive the input from the control, and this will help change the value of the current, frequency, and the pulse width. It relays the set value to the display so that the user gets aware of the new setting. Then we have a constant current generator. It is now an idle current generator does not exist, as the current must be same to the varying degree of resistance. So this is achieved by generating progressively higher voltage output as the impedance between electrodes as the impedance between the electrodes is increased. Then we have the current reference generator. It is based upon the voltage and a low tolerance digital potentiometer. Now it changes resistance over its entire range, and it is controlled by a microcontroller. Uh, it uses a series of commands which tell to increase or decrease the value. Here, a 10-bit potentiometer giving 1024 steps is sufficient for the application. Now the display, which is LCD or LED in type, it shows the set value of current, frequency, pulse width, and low battery level and probe disconnection. In newer machines, it also shows display current impedance in kilo ohms. There should be a clear digital display of accuracy to 2 decimal places, which is one of the important feature of the nerve stimulator, and it should also display an actual current delivered to the patient and not simply the set value of the current settings. It should also have it should be also equipped with a low and a high output ranges, as the low output ranges are used to alert the operator if there is any potential nerve damage or intraneural needle placement, and high ranges from 1 to 10 milliampere they are used for the epidural stimulation test. Coming on to the control, the three sets of control on nerve stimulator, that is current, frequency, and pulse width. They may be of analog or digital type, and each control increases or decreases the value of the control parameter. So you can see here the newer machines have an hand controller and foot pedals, which allows the operator to perform the block independently. Now, as you can see here in the picture, the yellow box shows the stimulus amplitude. The orange box shows here the pulse width in milliseconds. The red box shows here the frequency in hertz, and the blue box shows here the impedance in kilo ohms. You can get it in pageant and in Vibron machine. Now coming on to the desirable properties of the electrical nerve stimulator. So first is a shorter pulse width. It has two advantages. As the motor fibers have shorter frequency, they will get stimulated with a shorter pulse width. And so only motor fibers are stimulated and not the sensory fibers. So less discomfort to the patient and more pain while performing a block. The second reason is the shorter pulse width is superior to the longer in estimating the needle nerve distance. Then there should be a square wave current, that is an abrupt rise and fall, as a slow rising current will cause accommodation. So the abrupt rise and fall, that is a square wave current, is more beneficial than the slow rising current. Then there should be a preferential cathode stimulation, that is the cathode should be used as a stimulating electrode which is connected to a needle to depolarize a nerve rather than an anode. Then a constant current generator is used, not the fixed, which is one of the most important feature of the peripheral nerve stimulator, as the same current has constant current has to be produced with the changing impedances. Then we have frequency. 2 hertz is used better than 1 hertz because the manipulation of needle is much better. Now there should be an digital or analog dial to control the current, and also there should be an alarm for the disconnection and malfunction of the circuits. Now coming on to the setup and the checking of the equipment and some important aspects for the successful localization of the peripheral nerve using peripheral nerve stimulator. Now we should use only specifically manufactured nerve stimulator for nerve blocks. Only insulated needles should be used, and we have to use skin electrodes of low impedances, high quality skin electrodes. And before starting any procedure, we should check the functioning of the nerve stimulator and the connecting cables. During the procedure, we should check frequently whether the current is being delivered or if there is any disconnection. The design of the connector should prevent any faulty polarity connection, that only cathode should be used for the stimulating a nerve, not anode. The starting current for superficial block should be 1 milliampere and for deep block should be 1.5. We should while using an ultrasound, the selection of the current should be 0.5 milliampere. So basically, while using ultrasound and PNS together, it allows the operator to get warned whether the needle placement might be inside the nerve or not. While now here is a table showing the troubleshooting of PNS. So if the PNS stops working at all, we should check the battery or replace it. And we should also refer to the operator manual. If the nerve stimulator suddenly stops working, then we have to check and replace the battery. If no motor response is occurring in spite of the correct placement of the needle, we should check the connectors, skin electrode, cables, stimulating needle for interrupted circuit or any high impedance. We have to check the setting of the amplitude and impulse duration. We should also check stimulator setting if they might have test mode or pause mode, which will prevent the current delivery while performing a block. If the motor response disappears and cannot be regained, even after increasing the stimulus, amplitude and duration, then we have to check all the above parameters. And also sometimes by mistake, if they have injected local anesthetic, such will happen. Now coming on to the endpoint of nerve stimulation. So the threshold current to get a motor response where we have to inject a drug is considered from zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.5 milliampere, that is less than 0.5 milliampere and not less than 0.2 milliampere, because less than 0.2 milliampere will increase the risk of intraneural or fascicular injection. Now here there are some electrical features that it should have an adjustable constant current source with an operating range from 10 kilo ohms minimally output load impedance and ideally at 15 kilo ohms or greater. It should have an adjustable stimulus amplitude of 0 to 5 milliampere. It should have a selectable pulse duration between 0.1 and 1 millisecond, as motor fibers are stimulated more easily with a shorter current duration of 0.1 millisecond, whereas sensory fibers, they require longer stimulus duration of 1 millisecond. Then the stimulus frequency should be between 1 to 3 hertz, that is 1 to 3 pulses per second. So best is 2 hertz. Then the configuration startup parameters should be there so that the machine will comply with the hospital protocol and to avoid mistakes when multiple users are working with the same device. A display of the circuit impedance is recommended here to allow the operator to check the integrity of the electrical circuit and to detect a potential intraneural intravascular needle placement. An automatic self-check process should be there for the internal functioning of the unit. If there is, with the warning message, if there is any wrong or disconnection in the circuit. Coming on to the safety features, it should display all the parameters necessary to perform a nerve block. It should clearly identify the output polarity. It should have a meaningful instruction of use. The battery operations of the nerve stimulator as opposed to electrical operation provides intrinsic safety. So there should not, so there is no risk of any electric shock or burns if there is any short circuit to the main supply of the electricity. The maximum energy delivered by a nerve stimulator with 5 milliampere and 95 volt output signal at 1 millisecond impulse duration is only 0.475 millivolts. Now, the combined units of electrical and transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation should not be used because the transcutaneous measurements, which is used for muscle relaxation measurement, will produce a very high range, very high energy charge, or very high current. Now, the safety precautions while avoiding to avoid any patient discomfort, we should use the low intensity current. We should limit the stimulus energy by limiting the initial current amplitude to 1 milliampere for superficial blocks and 2 to 5 maximum for psoas and sciatic blocks. We should not use longer stimulus duration of more than 1 millisecond, and the drug, that is the local anesthetic, should not be injected at high pressures, that is more than 15 psi, the opening injection pressure. And the cables and the connectors should be insulated, and safety connectors should be there to prevent the leakage of any current. Now coming on to the needles for the single shot nerve blocks, there are different types of peripheral needles for the peripheral nerve blocks. Insulated needles are most commonly used. While using, if you are using only ultrasound, ecogenic needles have now come for the better visualization. Now, the commercially available needles for the single shot nerve blocks, they come with a pre-attached extension tubing to facilitate aspiration of the drug or 5% dextrose, and a female attachment for the connection to a nerve stimulator is also present. Now, sometimes the lure lock attached to the tubing will be used, so that has to be checked before injecting any drug. Now, the needle tip design. The nerve injury can be caused by the direct penetration or forceful needle nerve contact. So the bevel of the needle can have impact on the extent of the damage on the needle insertion, which is close to the nerve. So there are short bevel needles and long bevel needles. The advantage of short bevel needle is they reduce the nerve injury, whereas long bevel needles have shown to be likely to penetrate perineurium and cause fascicular injury. Now here, blunt non-cutting needle, Tuhi needle, are used to feel the pop while entering the fascia, whereas pencil point and Tuhi's needle can cause greater post-traumatic inflammation, myelin damage, and intraneural hematoma. Now, if the needle is too blunt, which will now this will hinder in the facial puncture, and will result in higher pressure applied, and this will cause the potential overshooting after puncturing the fascia. Now the needle tip design, as you can see here, we have a short bevel needle and a long bevel needle. So short bevel, Scotty or Winkies needle are used for single shot injection, and Tooley's needle are mainly for the continuous injection. Now the stimulating needle, they should be fully insulated. They should have a fully insulated needle hub and the shaft to avoid any current leakage, and depth markings should be there for easy identification and documentation of the needle depth. As you can see here, these are the echogenic needles while using both peripheral nerve stimulator and ultrasound. Coming on to the length of the needle. So the choice of the needle length will depend upon the which block is performed. For deeper blocks, we require longer needles of 100 to 120 mm, and shorter needles are required to perform the superficial blocks. Now the problem with the shorter needles are they may not reach the target site, whereas the longer needles they may get advanced too deeply. Here the needle should have the depth markings for the monitoring of the depth of penetration into the tissues, and the correct needle length with the shortest possible should be allowed for better visualization and manipulation. Here you can see the needles are having the centimeter markings, which can be used to monitor the depth of penetration. 22 gauge needles are most commonly used for the single shot peripheral nerve blocks. Now, the longer needles will bend more easily as compared to the shorter needles. So here, to perform any deep block, we need to use a longer needle with a larger gauge needle instead of a smaller gauge needle, which will lack rigidity and will get bent more easily. Now, the larger gauge needles, we should be used with caution because they are associated with the risk of tissue injury and hematoma formation. Whereas the smaller gauge needles will carry more serious risk of the tip getting inside the fascicular area. Now the smaller gauge needle have a problem of resistance, that is increased resistance of injection. So if by chance the needle is inside the intravascular structure, it will take longer time to aspirate the blood back. As you can see in the picture, there are two needles, insulated and non-insulated. In insulated needle, they are coated with a layer of Teflon and silicone except at the tip, and this insulated needles, here the current focus is only at the tip, so low amount of the current is required to stimulate a nerve. So smaller the conductive area for the current flow, the higher will be the current density. So the insulated needles can be used with a pulse duration of 0.2 to 0.5 milliseconds, and here there is a higher success rate as compared to the uninsulated needle, where they are not coated with any layer, and the current flows throughout the length of the needle, and thus they have a larger conducting area, and so a larger amount of current is required to stimulate a nerve, and this will produce discomfort to the patient. As you can see it in the picture, in the first picture, the needle is uncoated, the whole length of the needle is uncoated, and a larger amount of the current is required to stimulate a nerve. Here, the only bevel is uncoated, and a very lesser amount of current is required to stimulate a nerve. Here, the only tip is uncoated, whereas the whole length is coated, and so it requires a less amount of the nerve to stimulate less amount of the current to stimulate a nerve. Coming on to the continuous catheter assemblies, and they help in titration of the medication in small dose aliquots. Now there are two catheters, that is catheter through needle and catheter over needle. The advantage of catheter over needle is once the needle is after the insertion, once the needle is withdrawn, there is a tight seal which forms around the catheter. Whereas for the catheter through needle, the space will be created after the needle is withdrawn, and there will be a potential leakage around the insertion site. So these are the equipments for the continuous peripheral nerve block. Coming on to the injection pressure monitoring. So here a disposable manometer for the objective monitoring of the injection pressure is done during the administration of the peripheral nerve block. So basically it shows with higher injection pressure, we might go inside the nerve, and with the lower injection pressure, the there will be an appropriate injection around the vicinity of the nerve. So here you can see in the picture, there is an extraneural needle placement which is associated with low injection pressure of less than 15 psi. And here in the picture, there is an intrafascicular needle injection, intrafascicular injection where the injection pressures are associated with high pressures, that is of more than 50, the opening injection pressure is more than 15 psi. So this will cause the damage to the nerve, and it's mainly because of the breaching into the perineurium, and it interferes with the endoneural circulation and chemical injury from the neurotoxicity of the local anesthetic used. Now coming on to the advantages, if the PNS used along with the ultrasound, then PNS becomes a primary tool. Now it allows the operator to get alert whether the needle might be in the inside the nerve or not, because sometimes the structures are not visible in the ultrasound. So while if we use PNS along with the ultrasound, we may prevent the needle going inside the nerve and prevent the injury to the patient. Now, while using an ultrasound, this is a flow chart of PNS along with the ultrasound. Once the needle is connected to the nerve stimulator, this setting is done. You have to advance the needle towards the nerve or the plexus. The needle is adequately placed and seen on ultrasound. If the twitch is present, you have to reposition the needle in such a way that the twitch note which is present at less than 0.5 milliampere, and we have to inject the drug, and this completes the injection. Now, if the needle placement is not visible on the ultrasound, then if still twitch is present, we have to continue as a we have to try visualizing the needle on ultrasound, and if again the twitch is present, we have to allow more twitch at less than 0.5 milliampere, and we have to complete the injection. But if no twitch is present and poor visibility of the needle on ultrasound, then we have to increase the current to 1.5 milliampere and adjust the needle in such a way that we have to visualize the needle on ultrasound. Here, once the needle is visualized, there is no need for the no need to look for the twitch, and we have to inject the drug and complete the injection. And the injection pressure should be less than 15 psi. Now, there are some machines which have a disconnected malfunction alarms. That means that is used here. Some nerve stimulators have a change in tone or light to warn the circuit whether it is complete or not. So here they have taken an example of guiding the peripheral nerve stimulator using an insulated needle with an uninsulated tip inside the tracheal lumen. So as you can see here, when the needle tip is touching the trachea, it is completing the circuit. Whereas here the needle has crossed the airway lumen, as now it's inside the trachea, where it shows the circuit is incomplete. In the third picture, the needle is touching the airway lumen and the drug is injected, which showing with a green signal that the circuit is complete. Now, another advantages are now peripheral nerve stimulator is as transcutaneous nerve mapping. Now here that the nerve mapping pens are used to locate the superficial nerve up to the depth of 3 centimeter before the needle is being inserted for the nerve block. Now it helps in identifying the best site for the needle insertion if there is a difficult anatomy or where the landmarks are difficult to identify, and it also helps in teaching the surface anatomy. So here it requires a longer pulse duration of 1 millisecond and current of 2 to 5 milliampere. The electrode tip should be an atraumatic and ball-shaped needle, and the conductive tip diameter should not be less than 3 mm, as if it is more than that, there will be difficult, it will not provide sufficient current and will be difficult in spatial discrimination. Now there are different commercially available nerve mapping PNS. Now while performing the transcutaneous stimulation, because of the stimulation of the sensory cells, the patient might feel tingling, pinprick, or even slight burning sensation. Now the another advantages of PNS is a percutaneous electrode guidance. Sometimes it's difficult to mark the anatomic landmarks because the patient will vary. So for such reasons, to determine the exact location of the nerve before insertion of the needle, there are techniques like the transcutaneous and percutaneous nerve stimulation, which has been introduced recently. So here they combine the transcutaneous nerve stimulation along with the nerve stimulator to locate the underlying nerve by passing the electrode over the landmark that are difficult to differentiate. Like for example, it might be the interscalene groove during the brachial plexus block. Here the small imaging device is mounted and locked onto the nerve block needle, and this will allow the conducting needle to pass through the skin without any scratching. And once the best response is obtained, the needle is advanced through the skin and the remaining apparatus will stabilize the needle and guide it towards the target. Now this allows the operator to make, this allows for the pre-location of the target nerve prior to the skin puncture. Then we have the sequential electrical nerve stimulation. So it incorporates an additional stimulus with a longer pulse duration after two regular impulses at 0.1 millisecond duration, creating 3 hertz frequency, 3 hertz stimulation frequency. Here, as you can see the picture, the third longer impulse will deliver more charge than the first two, and this will help reaching the nerve faster. So ultimately, an evoked motor response is often elicited at 1 hertz, even when the needle is distant from the nerve. So once the needle is positioned closer to the nerve, the muscle twitches are seen at the 3 hertz. So as you can see in the picture here, increasing the pulse duration to 0.3 millisecond or 1 millisecond, there is increase in the calculated area under the curve. That means it represents the larger amount of the electrons for the same current applied. So the larger pulse durations will result in increased ability to stimulate a nerve at a distance or through the skin without the patient discomfort. Here you can see at a fixed current, the number of the twitches per second will increase. That is, here is 1 twitch, here 2 twitch, and here 3 twitches per second. This is because of the longer stimulus, that is of 1 millisecond, a motor response at a greater distance than those of the shorter pulse duration of 1.1 milliseconds. So as you can see here, this will produce 3 twitches. Coming on to the Raj test, it is the injection of local anesthetic or the normal saline, which will prevent the motor response, but not by the injection of the dextrose. Now, this is mainly because normal saline is a conducting fluid, and it not only disperses the current, but it also dissociates the fluid into a positive and negatively charged ion. So this ionic curtain will not allow the current to flow through the nerve. So we should use 5% dextrose, which is a non-conducting fluid. Now, what are the disadvantages of peripheral nerve stimulator? Now, if we are using peripheral nerve stimulator, it's not reliable in patient who has been given muscular depolarizing or polarizing muscle relaxant, and multiple injections while performing a block will decrease the sensitivity because of the partial nerve blockade in between the injections. And there is always a need of additional equipment, that is a nerve stimulator and insulated needles. And they always provide an indirect evidence of the nerve location, that the nerve stimulator may not detect the needle to nerve contact with 100% sensitivity. Now, the occurrence of a motor response at a current intensity of less than 0.5 milliampere can serve as an indicator of needle nerve contact or intraneural needle placement. Although this response may not be present even with the intraneural needle position, so it has a low sensitivity, but its presence is always indicative of intraneural needle placement, which has a high specificity. So ultimately, we should use a high quality of PNS with a constant current source, skinny electrode with low impedance, and insulated needle should be used for the injection with no insulation at the tip. Starting current should be 1 to 1.5 milliampere. With ultrasound, it should be 0.5 milliampere. The ending current should be less than 0.5 milliampere. Whereas the low intensity current up to 5 milliampere and short pulse width of 0.05 to 1 milliampere, 1 millisecond, and frequency of 1 to 2 hertz. The injection of LA should be with not less than 15 psi and less than 0.2 milliampere. That is the intensity of if there is a muscle twitch at less than 0.2 milliampere, then it indicates the needle is inside the. Thank you.